The sound you just heard came from an engine that should have died long ago. It ran with no oil, was eaten by rust, and sat abandoned for decades. Yet somehow it refused to quit. This is the Mopar 170 Slant-Six, an engine never meant to be heroic. It was originally created for simple daily driving, not glory. People mocked it for being slow, basic, and tilted to the side. While muscle cars of its era thundered with big V8s, this unassuming inline-six was treated like a joke. But when it was unexpectedly pushed into racing, something unbelievable happened. The engine didn't just compete, it crushed the entire field in what became one of NASCAR's most embarrassing defeats for the competition. As one mechanic put it, "We called it the Leaning Tower of Power. You couldn't kill it even if you tried." This raises a bigger question. Was its legendary toughness an accident or a final masterpiece of old-school American engineering? A design so durable that government regulations, not mechanical failure, became its biggest challenge. The Slant-Six began as a practical engine for Plymouth's budget-friendly cars, a modest 101 horsepower motor meant for family use, yet it earned a reputation for being nearly impossible to destroy. Farmers, taxi fleets, and backyard mechanics all called it the Million-Mile engine. But was it really that strong, or just a relic of an era when overbuilding machines was the norm? For almost 3 decades, Chrysler relied on its straight-six flathead engine, an outdated but dependable workhorse. By the late 1950s, though, it was clearly falling behind. America was shifting. Drivers wanted something smaller, lighter, and more efficient. European imports were gaining popularity with their compact, economical designs. Japanese manufacturers, though still emerging, were starting to capture attention too. Chrysler's leadership knew they had to adapt quickly. Their old flathead six was underpowered, thirsty, and no longer competitive. So the company set out to design a brand new inline six for a completely new compact car, the Plymouth Valiant. It would be cheaper, lighter, and far more efficient than anything Chrysler had built before. But there was a major problem. The new engine simply didn't fit inside the Valiant's smaller engine bay. That's when engineers, led by William V. Mann, took a radically different approach. Instead of redesigning the car or shrinking the engine, they rotated the entire engine 30 degrees to the right. No one had ever tilted an inline engine like this before. The unusual angle wasn't just to make it fit, it also allowed engineers to reposition the water pump and shorten the engine's overall length. The tilt lowered the car's center of gravity, created space under a lower hood line, improved airflow in the long intake manifold, and made packaging far easier. The result was a strangely angled engine that did everything Chrysler needed for the Valiant, Dodge Dart, and even some Chrysler Imperial models. When the first 170 cubic inch Slant-Six arrived, it produced 117 horsepower and 155 pounds-feet of torque. Modest numbers, but perfect for the economy cars it powered. It wasn't a performance engine, but it was incredibly practical, smooth, and efficient. The engineering behind it was the work of multiple brilliant minds. William V. Mann led the project, but others like John Hurst, who created the bunch of bananas intake manifold, played key roles. John Platner and Don Moore helped refine its performance. Bob Kring connected the design team with the foundry specialists, ensuring aluminum and iron versions could be produced reliably. Paul Ake and Fred Rose guided major design decisions. Together, these engineers created one of America's most durable engines. Chrysler initially experimented with aluminum engine blocks for the Slant-Six, but production issues and customer reluctance pushed the company back to cast iron. Inside, the engine used tin-coated aluminum pistons, and its head borrowed design elements from Chrysler's V8s, saving development costs while making service easier for mechanics familiar with those parts. One of the engine's most recognizable features was its looping, twisted intake manifold, jokingly called the bunch of bananas. Because both the intake and exhaust sat on the same side, engineers needed a creative layout. The design helped the engine warm up quickly and meet early emissions regulations, though it also heated the intake air, slightly limiting performance. Despite being designed for practicality, the Slant-Six proved it could be pushed far beyond its original purpose. When Chrysler realized drivers wanted more power, they introduced a stronger version with a longer stroke, the 225 cubic inch Slant-Six. It used redesigned internals, a new crankshaft, longer rods, and a taller block. The result was a much torquier, more capable engine that ended up in everything from Dodge trucks to enormous Plymouth land yachts. And for enthusiasts, Chrysler delivered the Hyperpack performance package in 1960, a 4-barrel intake, upgraded pistons, hotter camshaft, and racing headers. When 7 Hyperpack-powered Valiants entered NASCAR's compact car race that year, they finished 1st through 7th. Their top speeds at Daytona exceeded 130 miles per hour, meaning the little 170 Slant-Six was making nearly 200 horsepower.
Through the 1960s and 70s, the engine continued to evolve as emission standards tightened. New cam profiles, improved heads, revised carburetors, and ignition systems kept the Slant-Six relevant. Chrysler introduced the Super 6 package for better performance and economy, and although it wasn't a game changer, it gave the engine new life in the post-oil crisis era. The carburetors also changed constantly. The reliable single-barrel Carter carb ran from 1960 to 1971, later replaced by the Holley 1920, which became the engine's dependable workhorse for years. By 1963, Chrysler's carburetor choices had become a confusing maze. Some models unexpectedly came with the rare Stromberg WA3 carb, while others received entirely different units depending on whether the car had a manual or automatic transmission. Things got even more tangled as the years passed. When the dependable Holley 1920 was finally phased out in 1973, its replacement, the Holley 1945, stepped in to meet tightening emissions rules. It ran leaner and cleaner, but at the cost of performance, frustrating weekend tuners who swapped them out immediately for stronger aftermarket setups. To them, the Slant-Six deserved to breathe better than federal restrictions allowed. After nearly 10 years in production, the 170 cubic inch Slant-Six met its end in 1970. Chrysler replaced it with the slightly larger 198, built from the same sturdy block as the 225 but tuned differently. With a shorter stroke and longer connecting rods, the 198 ran smoother, used fuel more efficiently, and fit into the same engine bays without major redesign. 1 year later, Chrysler upgraded the lineup again by borrowing twin-barrel carburetors from its marine engines and introducing revised solid lifters for units built in Michigan and Ontario. Modern improvements continued. The old points ignition system was retired in favor of electronic ignition, and the engine began using universal V8-style oil filters, simplifying maintenance across the brand. But emissions laws were tightening rapidly. By 1975, the 198 could no longer meet federal requirements without losing too much power, so Chrysler discontinued it. Only the 225 cubic inch Slant-Six remained. To soften the transition, Chrysler redesigned the cylinder head to fix the long-standing issue of leaky spark plug tubes. Crush washers returned, but there was a downside. Now the entire cylinder head had to be removed to service the lifters. Around the same time, catalytic converters were added, but the new emissions hardware suffocated the engine's performance, dragging output down to about 95 horsepower into 185 pound-feet of torque. The tough old workhorse was beginning to feel muzzled. Regulations continued to reshape the Slant-Six. Chrysler phased out the trusty mechanical lifters in favor of hydraulic ones, which required reworking the rear of the camshaft so more oil reached the rocker arms and push rods first. Then, in 1976, Chrysler made a cost-cutting move that irritated purists. They swapped the forged steel crankshaft for a cheaper cast-iron version. The engine was still strong, but its reputation for being absolutely indestructible took a hit. 3 years later, Chrysler tried to modernize with lightweight aluminum intake manifolds welded using a new electron beam technique. It sounded futuristic, but real-world reliability was disappointing. Many owners found themselves dealing with cracks, leaks, and warped surfaces. By the late 1970s, Chrysler was experimenting with electronic feedback carburetors for the Slant-Six. In theory, the system used an oxygen sensor to fine-tune the mixture under heavy load or during cold starts. In practice, it quickly became notorious. The Holley 6145, paired with the new electronics, created a tangle of potential failures. For the 1981 model year, the carburetor setup became even more complicated, frequently causing drivability issues that frustrated buyers. As if that weren't enough, Chrysler added dual catalytic converters, each with their own warning lights, to comply with regulations, adding yet more layers of potential headaches. Chrysler did explore more advanced versions of the Slant-Six. turbocharging, fuel injection, even diesel variants. But none of these reached long-term production, either because they were too expensive or because newer engine families offered cleaner performance at a lower cost. Meanwhile, the early 1980s brought another problem, a bulky, failure-prone ECU mounted right on top of the air cleaner. It caused vacuum leaks, electrical glitches, and endless frustration for owners. By 1984, the Slant-Six had been pushed to the back of Chrysler's lineup, surviving only in North American trucks with a simple single-barrel carb. The engine quietly slipped out of the US market as diesel, V6, and updated V8s took over. But the Slant-Six didn't disappear immediately. Production lingered a bit longer in Mexico, and a few marine versions surfaced overseas in the early 1990s. Still, its global presence was fading, and its final years passed with little fanfare. What kept the Slant-Six alive for so long came down to one thing. It was built to endure, not to impress. Designed in an era when Chrysler valued rugged engineering above all else, the Slant-Six carried the same no-nonsense DNA as the company's heavy-duty V8s. It didn't boast huge horsepower numbers, but its construction was massive for a compact engine. The deep-skirted cast-iron block was thick and stable, resisting cracks under extreme heat and load. Early engines used a forged steel crankshaft secured by 4 oversized main bearings, the same size as those found in Chrysler's mighty 440 big block V8. Tin-plated pistons and exceptionally thick cylinder walls further added to its resilience, giving even the modest 170 cubic inch variant enough strength to handle torque well beyond its factory ratings. The engine's reputation wasn't built in magazines, it was built in the harsh environments where reliability mattered most. Chrysler's durability testing was brutal, subjecting engines to constant high heat, long periods of neglect, and heavy loads. Slant-Sixes routinely surpassed 200,000 to 500,000 miles in police cars, taxis, industrial machines, and delivery fleets. Mechanics shared countless stories: a New York City taxi that surpassed 400,000 miles in bumper-to-bumper traffic, a rural delivery van that ran for years with a cracked radiator and sporadic oil changes, engines that survived low oil, overheating, or even internal damage, but still got their drivers home. This pattern wasn't unusual, it was expected. The Slant-Six was engineered with the kind of excess strength rarely seen in economy engines. Oversized bearings, a heavy forged crank, and thick cast iron reinforced its ability to keep running long after other motors would fail. Even when cost-cutting changes arrived in later years, the heart of the engine remained durable. It was never a performer, especially once emissions restrictions began suffocating its output. But performance wasn't the point. What mattered was its stubborn ability to survive. Fleet operators didn't buy these cars for speed, they bought them because they couldn't afford downtime. And on that mission, the Slant-Six delivered every single time. Mechanics joked that the engine could run on rust and luck, and more often than not, it did. In the end, the real surprise isn't a scandal or a hidden flaw. It's that a simple, affordable economy engine from 1960 was engineered so robustly that it became almost impossible to kill. Its legendary toughness wasn't hype, it was the natural result of thoughtful, old-school engineering built on strength rather than flash.